Colonel Meyer said that George Preddy was a complete fighter pilot.
He was absolutely fearless.
We called Preddy Ratsy because he had big ears.
And he was so much better than I was, it wasn't even funny.
He was very determined.
He would be the first to spot an enemy airplane or a bogey.
He was a hunting warrior.
He gambled, he drank, he had the heart of a whale. He was just aggressive. And I thought, he's bound to be a good fighter pilot, that's what you need.
It takes 5 enemy aircraft destroyed to become an ace. In the 352nd, they produced 29 aces during the war. Of these, George Preddy was the top ace that ever flew a Mustang.
Although some people looked at him and said, can that fellow fly? He's a little skinny guy. As the Colonel Myers said, he said he was everything that a fighter pilot should be.
George Preddy was a quiet man who became one of our outstanding leaders and pilots. He was great to fly with. He was aggressive like a fighter pilot should be.
I remember the first time that I flew out in his flight. When he said, go, you better be ready, and you better floorboard it, so to speak, or firewall it, because he was going to go.
And I got to know him pretty well. He was very feisty, wound up like a $10 watch, and was very scrappy, whether we playing volleyball. And he thought he was 9 feet tall, but he wasn't, but he played like he was. He was just a real tiger, wound up tight.
He enjoyed life, and yet he could be serious when that was necessary.
When he'd had too much to drink, or he'd get involved with somebody, and with his aggressive nature, you know. And one of the other pilots would find me, say, Jack, George caused a little problem. So I'd go up to him, and the minute he saw me coming, he'd straighten up, and I said, George, you've had enough. You better go to bed.
And everybody wanted to fly in his flight. We wanted to be in his squadron when they took off, because you know, it was going to be exciting. He was going to be there for you, and you need to be for him too.
Flying with George, you knew you were going to stay out till the last drop of gasoline, that you had just a little enough left over to get back to the base. He was a hunter. He went out looking.
The Cripes and Mighty you see over here is one of the slogans. Most of the P-51s have got slogans and names that they have, and Preddy was a gambler in his off hours.
He used the phrase so often. Like I said, if he was shooting craps or playing poker, and Cripes and Mighty, you know.
And so we've taken this airplane and we've painted this up in honor of not just Preddy, but all the aviators and the maintainers and the people in the 352nd and the 328th.
The night before is when it all began. We had been paid, and that called for the usual crap game. George Preddy, our ace of Mustang aces, loved to shoot crap. He could shoot crap with the best of them. Well, that thing went on half the night and on up into the morning. A little beer was had, and a good time by all. As a matter of fact, we'd been told there'd be no mission because the weather was terrible. Now, that caused the crap game to go on another hour or two longer than it might have, and another beer or two might have been had. So, however, George went home with most of the money, and just about the time he got into bed and maybe had been there a few minutes, they woke him up and told him the mission was on. George sat in the cockpit and breathed a little oxygen, and the next thing you know, it was takeoff time, and takeoff he did. George tossed his cookies into his oxygen mask, but when he got to altitude and we got to the bombers, George looked around, and here are 30 or more Me-109 fighters right there in the thick of things. George goes straight in the middle of them. And the flight film, the combat film, shows that he flew right up their tailpipes and shot down 5 of them right away. And then he dove after the 6th, and down at treetop level, he nailed him. All this within 5 minutes, you understand. He landed, taxied up, and held up 6 fingers with a smile you wouldn't believe. That was George Preddy. Some kind of a man.
In 1944, Major Preddy came home to Greensboro, a great American hero. He returned as the highest scoring ace in the P-51. He was the highest scoring ace in the European theater at the time.
They wanted to use him for publicity purposes, but he didn't want to. He wanted to come back. He came back. He said, I've got to go back and fight again. That was George.
I want to read something to you that he wrote while he was at home. He said, I must go back to do my part, back to fly and give again. And I'm not afraid. My plane may be shot away, but I have wings. Wings not of wood or steel or stuff, but wings God gave my soul. Thank God for wings.
He went back to England in Bodney, and they moved him forward. He became the commander of the 328th Fighter Squadron, and he went to a base called Y-29.
Christmas Day, 1944, we were flying off Y-29, a metal strip in the Ardennes forest. Been mowed down through there, and we had this metal strip in the snow. The last mission Preddy flew was that morning, Christmas morning.
That last flight, as we were getting ready to go out to the plane, there was 4 of us, and he was, final instruction, he said, you know, stay in close and that sort of thing. And then just very dryly just pulled up the pants leg and showed his red socks that I believe his mother had sent and for Christmas. And he just said, matter of fact, he said, Preddy's going hot today. We took off and went to about 23,000. There were a lot of both enemy and friendly planes. The radio just came alive with all kinds of conversation, yelling, screaming.
Preddy had flying with him that day, his wingman was Gordon Carty. They ran into a couple of enemy aircraft, and they were down pretty low.
But they had gone down on the deck and was going across the treetops. And the anti-aircraft on the front line, our own people, had been told that there was an airplane, a German airplane coming towards them. So they got ready and they had all this fire ready. And Preddy was right on the tail of this one. He'd already shot down a couple. And so as soon as he came over the treetops and they threw up everything.
On Christmas Day, 1944, George Preddy, my commander, was killed by friendly flak. Period. I mean, what we do? We had a couple of drinks and went on and won the war. Period. That was the way it was.
He did his job, and the job was hunting enemy and getting rid of them.
Yes, it did affect us very much because we were friends and buddies, but that's the way life is, and I think we just had to buckle down and say, that was yesterday.
I flew George's wing numerous times. He was a quiet man, but he was a leader. He didn't seek any glory, but he deserves it.